The person you're mourning, they never existed. Not in the way you remember them. Not in the sacred shrine you've built inside your chest, decorated with their laughter, their touch, their promises. What you're clinging to isn't love, it's a ghost you've been feeding with your own blood. You've been holding conversations with shadows, arguing with echoes, making love to memories that have grown more vivid than the flesh that once contained them. And the cruelest truth, the person you think you've lost would be a stranger to you now if they walked through your door. This isn't grief. This is worship of your own creation. You've become the curator of a museum that exists only in your mind, polishing artifacts of moments that were never as perfect as you remember them. The way they looked at you that Tuesday morning, the weight of their hand in yours, the sound of their breathing in the dark. You've turned fragments into scripture, and scripture into chains. But here's what breaks your heart and sets you free at the same time. The version of them you're desperately trying to preserve was already dead long before they left. People change every moment they breathe. The cells in their body regenerated countless times. Their thoughts evolved. Their dreams shifted. Their fears transformed. The person who said goodbye to you was not the same person who said hello years ago. Years ago, and neither are you. You're not mourning a person. You're mourning a carefully curated highlight reel, a greatest hits album of your shared existence, a fantasy you've been refining and perfecting every day since they left. You've become a master editor of your own heartbreak, cutting out all the mundane moments, the arguments, the silences, the times they disappointed you or you disappointed them. From the moment you could speak, they taught you that love meant holding on. That dedication was measured by the depth of your wounds. That to let go was betrayal. That to move forward was to forget. That to heal was to dishonor what was sacred. They filled your head with stories of eternal devotion, of love that transcends death, of bonds that cannot be broken. They made you believe that your capacity to suffer was proof of your capacity to love. And so you learned to wear your pain like a badge of honor, to mistake your refusal to heal for loyalty. But what if they lied to you? What if the virtue they called faithfulness was actually fear? Fear of the empty space that healing would create. Fear of who you might become without the weight of this beautiful suffering. Fear of discovering that you can love deeply and still let go completely. You've been told that moving on means forgetting, that healing means you didn't love enough, that acceptance means surrender. So you've chosen to remain imprisoned by your own devotion, calling your cell a shrine, calling your chains a choice, the person you think you're honoring. They wouldn't recognize the monument you've built. They loved a living, breathing, changing version of you, not this frozen statue of grief that you've become. Look deeper into this conditioning. See how it began when you were small and helpless, when love meant survival, when losing someone's attention meant danger, maybe death. Your nervous system learned to equate letting go with abandonment, with being left alone in the dark. So even now, as an adult who can take care of yourself, you still respond to loss like that terrified child, who believes that holding on tight enough can make anyone stay. Your culture worships tragic love stories, Romeo and Juliet, Orpheus and Eurydice, the widow who never remarries, the parent who turns their child's room into a shrine. You've been programmed to believe that the depth of love is measured by the permanence of suffering, that moving on is a form of betrayal, that joy after loss is somehow disrespectful to what came before. But notice how this narrative serves no one, not you, who remains trapped in yesterday, not them, who are reduced to a static image instead of being honored for the dynamic, ever-changing force they were. Not the love itself, which becomes a prison instead of a liberation. Watch how this programming operates in your daily life. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone, scrolling through old photos, reading old messages, replaying conversations that happened months or years ago. You've turned your relationship with them into a ritual of self-harm, a daily practice of reopening the wound to prove it still bleeds. You've created elaborate ceremonies around your suffering. The anniversary of their death becomes a holy day of pain. Their birthday becomes a festival of absence. The places you went together become pilgrimage sites where you go to worship your own anguish. You've become a priest of your own heartbreak, conducting services for a congregation of one. And the most insidious part, you've convinced yourself this is love. You've made suffering synonymous with caring, made pain equivalent to devotion. You measure your love not by how alive it makes you feel, but by how dead it makes you feel without them. You've turned love into a tomb and buried yourself inside it. But here's what they didn't tell you. The person you're trying to keep alive through your suffering would be horrified by what you've become. They didn't love you so you could stop living. They didn't give you their heart so you could turn it into a stone. They didn't share their light with you so you could hide it. Under the bushel of your grief, you've been conditioned to believe that letting go means you didn't love enough. But what if the opposite is true? What if holding on so desperately means you don't trust that love enough? What if your refusal to heal is actually an insult to the depth of what you shared? The truth that terrifies you. They would want you to be happy. They would want you to love again. They would want you to laugh without guilt, to dance without shame, to wake up in the morning grateful to be alive instead of resentful that you have to face another day without them. Your suffering doesn't honor them, dishonors the life they lived, the love they gave, the joy they tried to plant in your heart. This is the hidden tyranny of your conditioning. You've been taught to mistake stagnation for loyalty, to confuse emotional imprisonment with spiritual devotion. You've been programmed to believe that moving on means moving away from them, when the truth is that moving on might be the only way to move toward them, toward the essence of who they were, toward the love they represented, toward the life they wanted you to live. Heraclitus knew the secret you've forgotten. Nothing remains the same. The river of existence flows forward always. And the person who stepped into that water yesterday is not the same person who emerges today. To try to stop the river is to miss the entire point of water. Your beloved was a flowing thing, a constellation of moments, decisions, laughter, fears, dreams that never stood still. They were becoming, always becoming, right up until their last breath. And yet you've taken this flowing creature and turned them into a photograph, unchanging and lifeless. Memory is not preservation, it's creation. Every time you remember them, you're not accessing some pure recording of the past. You're rebuilding them from the materials of your current self, painting them with the colors of your present needs and fears. The person you remember is as much you as it is them. This is why your grief feels so much like drowning. You're not mourning a person, you're mourning your own creation. And the creator cannot let go of what they've made without facing the terrifying emptiness of their own creative power. But here lies the paradox that will set you free. The deeper you love someone, the more completely you must be willing to let them go. Not because love ends, but because love itself is a flowing thing that cannot be grasped without being destroyed. The Buddha spoke of attachment as the root of suffering, but the West has misunderstood this teaching. Attachment is not love attachment. is fear wearing love's mask. Attachment says, I need you to remain exactly as I remember you, so that I can remain exactly as I am. Love says, I celebrate who you were, who you are becoming, and who you will become, even if that becoming takes you beyond my ability to follow. Nietzsche understood that even our deepest values must be questioned, must be allowed to die and be reborn. The love you think you're preserving by holding on so tightly, what if it needs to die so that a deeper love can be born? What if your refusal to let go is actually preventing the very connection you're trying to maintain? Consider this: every moment you spend talking to their ghost is a moment you're not present to the love that surrounds you now. Every conversation you have with their memory is a conversation you're not having with the living. Every tear you shed for who they were is a tear that doesn't water the ground of who you're becoming. There is another way to love, a love that comes not from emptiness seeking to be filled, but from fullness overflowing. Imagine loving like the sun loves the earth. The sun doesn't cling to its light, gives it freely, completely, without expectation of return. It doesn't mourn the night that follows. It doesn't demand that day be eternal. It simply shines when it shines, rests when it rests, and trusts in the rhythm of its own nature. This is the love that comes from abundance, not scarcity. A love that honors what was by allowing what is. A love that says, I loved you completely when you were here, and I love you completely in letting you go. When you love from this place, you don't need to preserve someone in amber to prove your devotion. You don't need to carry their ghost to show you haven't forgotten. You love them by loving life itself, the same life that flowed through them. That flows through you now. That connects you to them in ways deeper than memory. This kind of love gives because it cannot help but give. It doesn't love to possess, but to free. It doesn't hold on to prove itself. Fit. Let's go to prove itself. Like a river that doesn't mourn the mountain it leaves behind, but carries its minerals to the sea, transforming everything it touches. Your beloved lives on, not in your carefully constructed memories, but in the way love has changed you, in the capacity for joy they awakened, in the tenderness they taught you to feel. They live in your ability to love again, to trust again, to open again, not despite their absence, but because of how completely they loved you when they were here. This is the love that mature souls practice, the love that doesn't need permanence. To be profound doesn't need possession to be pure, doesn't need pain to be powerful. It's the love that says, thank you for the gift of loving you, and means it without reservation, without conditions, without the demand that the gift continue forever. Watch how this love transforms you. Instead of making you smaller, it makes you larger. Instead of closing your heart, it opens new chambers you didn't know existed. Instead of turning you into a monument to the past, it makes you a fountain that never stops flowing. This love doesn't say, I will never love anyone the way I loved you. It says, because of how deeply I loved you, I now know how deeply I can love. It doesn't say, no one will ever replace you. It says, you have shown me that love is not a limited resource, but an infinite well that gets deeper every time. I draw from it, but understand what this new virtue demands of you. It requires that you become someone worthy of this kind of love, not through suffering, but through joy, not through self-denial, but through self-expansion, not through becoming less so that you can honor what you've lost, but through becoming more so that what you've gained can find full expression. This love asks you to be brave in ways you've never been brave before, to laugh when part of you thinks you should cry, to dance when part of you thinks you should mourn, to open your heart to new possibilities when every fiber of your being wants to close it in protection of what was. It asks you to trust that your beloved's love for you was real, enough, strong enough, pure enough that it doesn't need your suffering to keep it alive, that the love you shared was so genuine that it can survive your happiness, so deep that it can withstand your healing, so true that it actually demands your wholeness. This is the love that says, I will not dishonor what we had by refusing to fully live. I will not insult your memory by making myself smaller. I will not cheapen our connection by pretending that loving you means I can never love again. This is the love that grows beyond the person who inspired it, that becomes bigger than the relationship that birthed it, that transforms from being about two people to being about the very nature of love itself. When you love this way, you become a living testament to the power of love to transform everything it touches. You become proof that love doesn't die when people die, simply changes form, expands beyond the boundaries of specific relationships, becomes a force that blesses everything and everyone it encounters. You become someone who loves not because you need to be loved back, but because love itself is flowing through you. Someone who gives not because you expect to receive, but because giving has become as natural as breathing. Someone who opens not because you're guaranteed that you won't be hurt again, but because being closed hurts more than any wound love could ever inflict. This is the new virtue, love that is so abundant it doesn't need to hold onto anything, so confident it doesn't need to control anything, so pure it doesn't need to possess anything. Love that gives because it cannot help but give, that shines because shining is its nature, that flows because it trusts completely in the ocean toward which all rivers run. Your beloved didn't give you their love, so you could hoard it like a miser counting coins in the dark. They gave it to you so you could invest it, multiply it, let it grow into something even more beautiful than what you shared together. They loved you not to make you smaller, but to show you how vast you really are. But even this luminous love, this overflowing abundance it too must learn to die. There comes a moment when even the most beautiful grief must be laid to rest, when even the most sacred memory must be released into the silence from which it came, when the self that loves so deeply must withdraw into the emptiness that births all love. This is not abandonment, this is not forgetting, this is the deepest honoring possible, the recognition that all forms, no matter how beautiful, are temporary visitors in the infinite space of your being. The lover dies, the beloved dies, the love itself dies, and in that dying, something wordless is born, a silence that contains all sound, an emptiness that holds all fullness, a peace that surpasses the understanding of both grief and joy. In this silence, you remember what you were before you learned to love, what you are beneath all your loving, what you will be when all love has returned to its source. Not the absence of love, but the space in which love is possible. Not the end of connection, but the ground from which all connection springs. Even your capacity to heal must be surrendered. Even your wisdom must be forgotten. Even your strength must be laid down. For there is something in you that is prior to strength and weakness, prior to remembering and forgetting, prior to loving and losing. This is the final gift your beloved offers you, the invitation to discover what remains when everything else has been stripped away. Not emptiness, but the fullness that needs nothing. Not loneliness, but the solitude that contains all company. Not death, but the deathless awareness that witnesses all dying. Here, in this sacred stillness, You understand that your beloved was never separate from you in the first place. The love you shared wasn't something that happened between two people, was something that happened through to people, expressing itself in the form of your connection. And that love doesn't disappear when the form changes. It simply finds new ways to express itself. The silence teaches you that mourning is not about the past, it's about the future. You're not crying for what was lost, but for what will never be. Not for the conversations you had, but for the conversations you'll never have. Not for the person they were, but for the person they would have become. And in accepting this, in letting the future you imagined together die as completely as you let the past die, you discover something extraordinary, the eternal present moment where love exists beyond time, beyond form, beyond the need for any particular expression. This is where your beloved waits for you, not in yesterday's memory or tomorrow's fantasy, but in the timeless now that is always available, always present, always calling you home to yourself. Now comes the moment of choice. You can continue to visit the museum of your own making, polishing the same artifacts, telling yourself the same stories, wearing the same chains you've mistaken for jewelry. You can keep having conversations with ghosts while life passes by outside your carefully constructed shrine, or you can step into the river. You can honor what was by fully embracing what is. You can love your beloved so completely that you set them free from the prison of your memory. You can discover what it means to grieve, not as a wound that won't heal, but as a love that has nowhere left to pour itself, but into life itself. The choice is not between remembering and forgetting. The choice is between being enslaved by the past and being freed by it, between using love as a chain and using it as wings, between turning your heart into a tomb and turning it into a temple where new love can be born. If you're ready to step into this river, write these words in the comments. I release you into the love that flows through all things. Let these words be your declaration of freedom, not from love, but into love, not from memory, but into presence, not from connection, but into the source of all connection. This is not the end of your story with them. This is the beginning of the chapter where love learns to love without grasping, where memory learns to serve life instead of imprisoning it, where you discover that the deepest way to honor someone is to live so fully that their love continues to flow through you into the world. But understand this, writing those words is just the beginning. The real work starts when you close this video and face the empty space where your beautiful suffering used to live. The real courage is required when you wake up tomorrow and choose presence over memory. When you choose to love the people in front of you instead of the ghost in your heart. Your beloved didn't love you so that you would stop loving. They loved you so that you would learn how to love more deeply, more freely, more completely than you ever thought possible. They gave you their love, not as a burden to carry, but as a gift to share. The river is waiting. Your beloved is waiting not in the past where you've imprisoned them, but in the eternal now where all love converges. Step into the water, let it carry you, let it carry them, let it carry the love that was never yours to hold, but always yours to give. The sun doesn't ask permission to set,